What happens when a beloved television host lets power go to her head and turns on a respected guest in front of millions? In just 31 seconds, Lorraine Kelly would reveal her true colors and spark one of the most shocking moments in daytime television history. This is the story of how a simple interview turned into an all-out war, and why Piers Morgan became the unlikely hero who stood up to a bully. The morning started like any other episode of the popular talk show. Lorraine Kelly sat in her signature chair, her smile plastered across her face as the cameras rolled. Next to her sat two other panel members, Sarah Mitchell and David Chen, both regular contributors who had learned long ago to nod along with whatever Lorraine said. The studio audience buzzed with anticipation. They had no idea they were about to witness television history. Piers Morgan walked onto the set to warm applause. He had been invited to discuss his new book about media integrity, a topic he was passionate about. As he took his seat across from the panel, he noticed something off about Lorraine's demeanor. Her smile seemed forced, her eyes cold. But Piers, ever the professional, extended his hand in greeting. "Piers, welcome to the show," Lorraine said, her voice dripping with false sweetness. "Or should I say, welcome back. I'm surprised you had the nerve to show your face here after what you said about our program last month." The audience fell silent. Piers looked genuinely confused. "I'm sorry, Lorraine, but I'm not sure what you're referring to. I've always had respect for your show." Lorraine laughed, but there was no humor in it. She turned to Sarah and David, who both shifted uncomfortably in their seats. "Can you believe this? He sits there and pretends he doesn't remember." "Sarah, David, you both heard what he said, didn't you?" Sarah looked down at her notes, clearly not wanting to get involved. David cleared his throat nervously. "Well, I'm not really sure," he stammered. Lorraine's face hardened. "Not sure? Really, David? That's interesting. Maybe you need to think about whether you want to keep your spot on this panel." The threat hung in the air. Piers sat forward, his expression turning serious. "Lorraine, I genuinely have no idea what you think I said, but threatening your colleagues on live television, that's not professional. That's not right." "Oh, so now you're going to lecture me about professionalism?" Lorraine shot back, her voice rising. "That's rich coming from you. You, who made your entire career on controversy and confrontation. At least I built my reputation on being likable, on being someone people actually want to watch." Piers remained calm, his voice steady. "I've built my career on asking tough questions and holding people accountable. There's a difference between that and what you're doing right now. You're attacking me for something I supposedly said, but you won't even tell me what it was. That's not journalism. That's a witch hunt." The audience murmured in agreement. Some people nodded. Lorraine noticed, and her face flushed red. She wasn't used to losing control of her own show. "A witch hunt? How dare you? This is my program. I decide what we talk about. I decide who gets to speak. And right now, I'm deciding that you need to apologize." Piers shook his head slowly. "Apologize for what? You still haven't told me what I supposedly did wrong. And frankly, even if you had, I don't respond well to bullies. Whether they're in politics, in business, or sitting across from me on a television set." Sarah finally spoke up, her voice quiet. "Lorraine, maybe we should just move on to—" "Don't you dare," Lorraine snapped, cutting her off mid-sentence. "Don't you dare try to manage me. I've had enough of everyone questioning me. I'm the host. I'm in charge here. And if I want to call out Piers Morgan for his arrogance and his complete disregard for other people, then that's exactly what I'm going to do." The studio had gone completely quiet. Even the camera operators seemed frozen. This was supposed to be a friendly morning talk show, not a battlefield. David tried next, speaking carefully. "Perhaps we could all take a breath and—" "A breath?" Lorraine turned on him. "David, your job is to agree with me. That's what you're paid for. That's what you're here for. Not to play peacemaker, not to make me look like the bad guy." Piers leaned back in his chair, watching this unfold with growing disbelief. When he spoke, his voice was firm but not cruel. Lorraine, listen to yourself. You're telling your panelists that their job is to agree with you? That's not how television works. That's not how any healthy workplace works. These are intelligent people with their own thoughts and opinions. They're not your puppets. Lorraine stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. That's it. I've heard enough. You don't get to come onto my show and tell me how to run it. You don't get to sit there with your smug face and your self-righteous attitude and act like you're better than me. Piers remained seated, his composure intact. I never said I was better than you, Lorraine. But I will say this. What you're doing right now, the way you're treating your colleagues and your guest, it's beneath you, or at least it should be. Sarah's eyes were wide. She looked like she wanted to disappear into her chair. David had gone pale, clearly regretting ever accepting a position on this panel. The audience sat in stunned silence, some with their mouths literally hanging open. This was not what anyone had expected from their cheerful morning show. Lorraine pointed a shaking finger at Piers. You think you can come here and humiliate me? You think you can make me look bad in front of my audience? Let me tell you something, Piers Morgan. I've been doing this for 25 years. 25 years. And I've survived a lot worse than you. I'm not trying to humiliate you, Piers replied, his patience clearly wearing thin. You're doing that all by yourself. All I did was show up to talk about my book. You're the one who decided to turn this into some kind of personal, and frankly, I'm getting tired of it. Lorraine's voice became shrill. Tired of it? Tired of it? You haven't seen anything yet. You want to know what I really think of you? You want to know what everyone really thinks of you? You're nothing but a provocateur, a troublemaker, someone who tears others down to make himself feel important. And the only reason anyone pays attention to you is because you're loud and obnoxious. The insults hung in the air. Piers took a deep breath, and for a moment, those watching thought he might explode. But he didn't. Instead, he spoke with a quiet dignity that made Lorraine's shouting seem even more unhinged. You know what, Lorraine? I feel sorry for you. I really do. Because clearly, something's going on here that has nothing to do with me. Maybe you're having a bad day. Maybe you're under pressure. I don't know. But taking it out on me and your staff? That's not acceptable. Don't you dare pity me, Lorraine hissed. I don't need your sympathy. I don't need anything from you. Sarah found her courage and spoke up again. Lorraine, please, can we just… No, Sarah, we can't just anything. Lorraine whirled on her. And, you know what? I'm done with you too. You and David both. Sitting there like frightened mice. What's the point of having you on the panel if you're not going to back me up? David finally showed some backbone. We're not here to back you up blindly, Lorraine. We're here to have discussions. And, right now, honestly, I think you're being unfair to Piers. He came here in good faith, and you've been attacking him since the moment he sat down. Lorraine looked like she'd been slapped. Unfair? Unfair? This is unbelievable. My own panel is turning against me, after everything I've done for you people, after all the opportunities I've given you. Opportunities? Sarah's voice grew stronger. Lorraine, we're not ungrateful. But opportunities don't give you the right to treat people however you want. You've created an environment where nobody feels safe to disagree with you, where everyone's walking on eggshells every single day. The audience was completely transfixed. Some were recording on their phones, capturing every moment of this unprecedented meltdown. This wasn't scripted drama. This was real people having a real confrontation, and nobody could look away. Lorraine's hands were shaking now. I gave you everything. I made you who you are. Without me, you'd still be writing articles nobody reads for websites nobody visits. I put you on television. I made you relevant. Piers, who had been watching this exchange quietly, spoke up again. And there it is. That's what this is really about, isn't it? Control. You think because you gave someone a job, they owe you complete loyalty. They owe you their voice, their opinions, their dignity. That's not how any of this works, Lorraine. That's not how human beings work. Don't you dare psychoanalyze me. Lorraine spat. You don't know anything about me, about what I've been through, about what it takes to survive in this industry as a woman. You're right, Piers said calmly. I don't know everything you've been through, and I'm sure it hasn't been easy, but that doesn't justify what you're doing right now. Plenty of women have faced adversity in this industry and managed not to become tyrants. Your struggles don't give you permission to make other people struggle. David cleared his throat, gathering more courage. He's making a valid point, Lorraine. We all respect what you've accomplished. But respect goes both ways. You can't demand it from others while refusing to give it back. Lorraine whirled back to face David. Oh, now you're brave? Now you want to speak up? Where was this courage last week when I asked for your opinion and you just sat there like a statue, or the week before that, or the week before that? David's face flushed. Last week you asked my opinion, and when I gave it, you cut me off and called it ridiculous. The week before that, you told me my ideas were boring. The week before that, you said I clearly didn't understand the show's audience. So yes, Lorraine, I stopped sharing my opinions, because what's the point when you're just going to tear them apart? The studio felt like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Piers watched as years of resentment bubbled to the surface. He hadn't meant to trigger this avalanche, but now that it had started, there was no stopping it. And, honestly, he thought, maybe it needed to happen. Maybe these people needed to finally say what they'd been holding back. Sarah joined in, her voice getting stronger with each word. And do you remember what you said when I suggested we do? A segment on mental health in the workplace? You laughed. You actually laughed and said people need to toughen up. That mental health is just an excuse for lazy people who don't want to work hard. Lorraine's eyes went wide. I never said that. You're lying. There were 12 people in that production meeting. Sarah shot back. 12 witnesses who heard exactly what you said. Should I start naming them? Because I will. Piers intervened gently. Maybe we should all take a step back here. This is clearly about more than just today's interview. There are obviously some deeper issues that need to be addressed. But doing it on live television might not be the best venue. Now you're trying to be the voice of reason? Lorraine's laugh was bitter. After you started all of this? I didn't start anything, Piers corrected her firmly. You started this the moment. You attacked me for something I allegedly said without even telling me what it was. I just refused to be bullied. There's a difference. A member of the audience couldn't help themselves and called out, "He's right, Lorraine." Immediately, several other audience members nodded and murmured, "Agreement." The tide had completely turned. Lorraine stared at the audience in disbelief. You're supposed to be on my side. This is my show. These are my fans. Another audience member spoke up, an elderly woman in the third row. We were your fans, dear. But what we're seeing right now, this isn't the person we thought we knew. This isn't the warm, friendly host we've been watching all these years. This is someone we don't recognize. The words hit Lorraine like a physical blow. Her carefully constructed public image was crumbling in real time, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. Every word she spoke seemed to make things worse. Every action seemed to dig the hole deeper. Piers felt a genuine twinge of sympathy. Despite everything, watching someone self-destruct was never pleasant. Lorraine, he said softly, it's not too late to de-escalate this. We can end this conversation now. Take a break. Figure things out off camera. Nobody has to be the villain here. For a moment, just a brief moment, something shifted in Lorraine's expression. She looked tired, defeated, human, but then her pride kicked back in, and her face hardened again. I don't need your charity, I don't need your pity, and I certainly don't need your advice on how to run my show. Piers stood up slowly, adjusting his jacket. Your panel isn't turning against you, they're just being honest. And if you can't handle honesty, then maybe you're in the wrong profession. The wrong profession? Lorraine's voice climbed higher. I've won awards, multiple awards. I've been nominated for everything there is to be nominated for. Critics love me. The network loves me. My ratings are solid. And you're telling me I'm in the wrong profession? Piers paused, his hand on the back of his chair. Awards don't mean anything if you achieve them by making everyone around you miserable. Ratings don't matter if you're crushing people's spirits to get them. Success without kindness isn't really success at all. It's just winning at someone else's expense. A young production assistant near the cameras wiped tears from her eyes. Another crew member nodded solemnly. It was clear that Piers's words were resonating with more than just the panel and the audience. The entire production team was feeling this. You know what your problem is, Lorraine said, her voice dripping with venom. You think you're some kind of moral authority. You think because you ask tough questions and challenge people, that makes you better than everyone else. But you're just as flawed as the rest of us, maybe more so. I never claimed to be perfect, Piers replied evenly. I've made mistakes, plenty of them, but I own them. I learned from them. I don't blame other people for my shortcomings or take my frustrations out on innocent staff members. That's the difference between us, Lorraine. I take responsibility for my actions. David spoke up again, his voice shaking, but determined. You want to know something else, Lorraine? Last month, when Jennifer left the show, you told everyone she quit to pursue other opportunities. But that's not what happened. She left because she couldn't take the pressure anymore. Because coming to work every day felt like walking into a war zone. Lorraine's face went pale. Jennifer left for personal reasons. That's what she told me. Jennifer left because you made her cry, Sarah said quietly. 3 times in 2 weeks. She started having panic attacks before coming to work. Her doctor recommended she leave for her mental health. But she was too afraid to tell you the truth because she knew you'd make her life even more difficult. The studio had gone completely silent. This was information that had been kept quiet. Stories that had been whispered in hallways and break rooms, but never spoken aloud. Now, with the cameras still rolling, everything was coming out. Piers felt his anger growing, not at Lorraine's treatment of him, but at the realization of how many people had suffered in silence. Is this true? He asked, looking directly at Lorraine. Did you know Jennifer was struggling? Did anyone tell you how your behavior was affecting her? Lorraine's defiance wavered for a moment. People are too sensitive these days. Everyone wants to be coddled and protected. In my day, you just got on with it. You didn't complain. You didn't make excuses. You worked hard and you dealt with whatever came your way. In your day? Piers shook his head in disbelief. Lorraine, treating people with basic decency isn't some modern invention. It's not being too sensitive to expect respect in the workplace. That's been a fundamental human need for as long as humans have existed. Sarah looked at the floor, her voice barely above a whisper. I've thought about leaving too, more times than I can count. The only reason I've stayed is because I need this job. I have bills to pay, a family to support. But every morning when I wake up, I dread coming here. I actually dread it. Tears started rolling down Sarah's cheeks. David reached over and squeezed her hand supportively. The audience watched this display of genuine emotion with a mixture of sympathy and shock. This was no longer entertainment. This was a workplace intervention happening in front of millions. Lorraine looked at Sarah, and for the first time, something like realization seemed to dawn on her face. But instead of softening, instead of showing compassion, she doubled down. Oh, here come the waterworks. How convenient. Playing the victim to make me look like the bad guy. That was the moment Piers knew. There was no getting through to her. Some people, when confronted with the harm they've caused, take a hard look at themselves and try to change. Others build their walls higher and blame everyone else. Lorraine was firmly in the second category. Where do you think you're going? Lorraine demanded. I didn't say you could leave. Oh, Piers smiled, but it wasn't a friendly smile. Actually, Lorraine, I can leave whenever I want. I'm a guest, not an employee, and I don't stay in places where I'm not treated with basic respect. Basic respect? Lorraine's voice rose to a near scream. You come onto my show, you disrupt everything. You turn my own staff against me, and you have the audacity to talk about respect? You have no idea what respect means. Piers stopped and turned back to face her fully. His voice was calm but carried across the entire studio. I know exactly what respect means. It means treating people the way you want to be treated. It means listening when someone tells you they're struggling. It means apologizing when you've hurt someone. It means being big enough to admit when you're wrong. Those are things you clearly don't understand, and that's tragic. But it's not my job to teach you basic human decency. The audience erupted in spontaneous applause. It wasn't planned. It wasn't prompted. It was genuine appreciation for someone finally saying what they'd all been thinking. Lorraine looked at them in horror, realizing she'd lost even her own audience. If you walk off this set, Lorraine said, her voice low and threatening, if you dare walk off my show, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. I'll tell them how you disrespected me, how you came here just to cause trouble. Piers paused and turned back to face her. The cameras were still rolling, capturing every second. You know what, Lorraine? Go ahead. Tell them whatever you want, because they just watched the whole thing. Everyone saw what really happened here. They saw you attack me for no reason. They saw you threaten your own staff. They saw you lose control. So tell your story. I'm sure it'll be fascinating. Sarah stood up too. Piers is right, Lorraine. This has gone too far. Lorraine turned on her viciously. Sit down, Sarah, right now. But Sarah didn't sit down. No, I've worked with you for 3 years. Lorraine, 3 years of walking on eggshells? Of pretending your outbursts are normal? I'm tired of it. David's tired of it. The whole production staff is tired of it. The audience gasped. David nodded in agreement. She's right. This isn't the first time you've done something like this. It's just the first time it's happened on camera. Lorraine looked around wildly, as if searching for someone to defend her, but the studio was silent. Even her producers behind the cameras seemed frozen, unsure of what to do. You're all against me, she whispered. All of you. Piers shook his. Nobody's against you, Lorraine, but we're not going to enable your behavior either. There's a difference. Lorraine's voice rose to a scream. Get out! Get out of my studio! You're banned! You hear me? Banned from ever coming back. Piers looked at her with something like pity. I wasn't planning on coming back anyway, but thank you for making it official. He turned to Sarah and David. Good luck to both of you. You're going to need it. As Piers walked toward the exit, Lorraine called after him. You think you're so much better than me? You think you've won? This is my show, mine, and I'll still be here long after everyone's forgotten about you. Piers stopped at the door and looked back one final time. His voice was calm, measured, and devastating. You know what the sad thing is, Lorraine? You're probably right. You'll still have your show. You'll still have your platform. But you won't have your dignity. You lost that today, all by yourself. And that, I think you'll find, is something you can't get back. With that, Piers Morgan walked off the set. The studio doors closed behind him with a soft click that somehow felt louder than all of Lorraine's shouting. The cameras kept rolling, capturing Lorraine standing alone on her own stage, her face a mask of fury and something else, something that looked almost like shame. Sarah and David exchanged glances. Without a word, they both removed their microphones and stood up. David spoke first, his voice steady. I'm sorry, Lorraine, but I can't do this anymore. Sarah nodded. Neither can I. They walked off the set together, leaving Lorraine completely alone. The audience sat in absolute silence, too shocked to even applaud or boo. Nobody knew what to do. This wasn't entertainment anymore. This was witnessing someone's complete meltdown in real time. Lorraine looked at the cameras, then at the audience, then back at the cameras. Her mouth opened and closed, but no sound came out. For once in her career, Lorraine Kelly had nothing to say. The control she'd wielded so ruthlessly had slipped through her fingers like sand. A producer finally came onto the set, speaking quietly into Lorraine's ear. She nodded numbly and walked off stage without another word. The broadcast cut to an emergency commercial break, but it was too late. Everyone had seen it. Everyone knew what had happened. In the green room, Piers sat calmly, checking his phone. A production assistant approached him nervously. "Mr. Morgan, I just wanted to say thank you." Someone needed to stand up to her. Piers looked up and smiled kindly. "I didn't do it to be a hero. I just did what anyone should do when they see someone being treated poorly. You don't have to accept bullying, no matter who it comes from." Sarah and David found him there a few minutes later. Sarah's hands were shaking. "I can't believe we just did that. I can't believe that just happened." David sat down heavily. "It's been building for so long. Every day, walking into that studio, wondering if today would be the day she'd turn on us." Piers nodded. "I've worked in television for a long time. I've seen plenty of difficult personalities. But what I saw out there, that wasn't just difficult. That was toxic." Sarah wiped her eyes. "Do you think we'll be able to find work again after walking out like that?" "Are you kidding?" Piers laughed. "You two just showed more courage in 5 minutes than most people show in their entire careers. Trust me, people will be lining up to work with you." Outside the studio, news vans were already starting to gather. The footage was spreading online at lightning speed. Phones were buzzing everywhere as people shared clips, commented, debated. Within hours, it would be the biggest story in television, not because of anything scandalous or manufactured, but because people had witnessed something real, something raw. They'd watched a powerful person lose control. They'd watched colleagues find the courage to stand up for themselves. And they'd watched Piers Morgan, often criticized as controversial, show grace under pressure. He hadn't shouted back. He hadn't stooped to insults. He'd simply refused to accept unacceptable behavior. As Piers prepared to leave the building, a young intern stopped him. "Mr. Morgan, can I ask you something?" "Of course. How did you stay so calm?" "When she was saying all those things, attacking you like that, I would have lost it." Piers thought for a moment. "Here's the thing about bullies. They want you to lose control. They want you to get angry, to shout back, to look as bad as they do. The moment you do that, you've given them exactly what they want. But if you stay calm, if you keep your dignity, then they have nothing. Their words bounce off you, and everyone watching can see exactly who they really are." The intern nodded slowly. "That makes sense. Thank you." As Piers walked out into the bright daylight, he took a deep breath. The morning hadn't gone as planned. His book would probably get less attention now than the drama would. But in a way, he demonstrated everything the book was about. Standing up for what's right, refusing to accept toxicity, maintaining your integrity even when someone tries to tear you down. Back inside the studio, Lorraine sat in her dressing room, staring at her reflection. For the first time in 25 years, she had no idea what would happen next. The power she'd held so tightly had vanished in 31 seconds of uncontrolled rage. And as she sat there alone, she began to realize that Piers had been right about one thing. She couldn't get that back. No amount of spin, no carefully worded apology, no damage control could undo what millions of people had just witnessed. There was a soft knock on her door. Her longtime makeup artist, Maria, entered quietly. "Lorraine, are you okay?" Lorraine didn't answer. She just stared at her reflection, barely recognizing the woman looking back at her. "Maria, am I really that bad? Am I really as terrible as they all made me sound?" Maria sat down beside her. "Lorraine, I've worked with you for 15 years. When I first started, you were kind. You cared about people. But somewhere along the way, something changed. The job became more important than the people. And yes, it's been hard. For all of us." Tears streamed down Lorraine's face. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "We tried," Maria said gently, "but you didn't want to hear it. After a while, we all just learned to keep quiet." The show that had been her kingdom for so long suddenly felt like a prison. The crown she'd worn with such arrogance now felt impossibly heavy. In trying to assert her authority, she'd lost everything: her dignity, her respect, her allies. All because she couldn't handle one guest who refused to bow down. Piers Morgan had walked off her set, but Lorraine Kelly had lost something far more valuable. She'd lost herself. And now, surrounded by the wreckage of relationships she'd destroyed and respect she'd squandered, she was finally forced to confront the person she'd become. The question was, would she have the courage to change, or would pride keep her locked in the same destructive patterns? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain: nothing would ever be the same again.